Okay, so you start a little higher than what you think you would want because you're going to pull that down a bit as you fill the snowshoe. So I'm going to start around here. So you start with a half hitch. Then you're going to wrap around your snowshoe 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And you don't want to pull this too tight because you're going to pull your snowshoe out of shape. So it's fine if it's slack. Then you're going to wrap around all these strands that you have here. So you go over them and come in through your loop. And pull all your line through. And this is the most time-consuming part, is pulling all your line through. So you can take your 18 fetims and cut it in half and use, I usually use 11 and 7, and you can join it instead of using all one long piece. Okay, so you see how we're just grabbing all these strands. Now we're going to come down to the bottom of our snowshoe and tie another half hitch at the bottom. Make sure you take your end and throw it away from the line that's coiled on the floor so that it doesn't get into a big tangle. You want to pull your knots really tight. Okay, so now we're going to come up to the right side of our snowshoe and do the same thing we did on this side. We're just going to go over all these loops. Come around on the left side. Okay, so we just went over and came out underneath on the left hand side. We're going to pull that snug, not too tight, and tie a knot on our frame. So this is going to be a, I think it's called a reef knot. Okay, so now is a rule that we have to remember as we fill our snowshoe. When we go across, we're always going to go over the strands on this side and underneath the strands on this side. You have to remember that every time you come across your snowshoe. So you're going to come across and tie another reef knot on this side. Okay, so now we're going to go underneath this strand and straight up our snowshoe to make our first twirl. So we're going to tie a half hitch up here. So now you're going to twirl around this long portion as many times as you like. I just do probably 2 or 3 times for the small one. So when you're done twirling, you want to pull that good and tight because these have a tendency to stretch a lot. And then you're going to come underneath and come out on the left side. Okay, so you went over the strands. When you're done twirling, you're going to come on the back of the strands and come up through on the left side of your line. So by doing that, you're kind of pinching these main strands. You're holding them. And then you're going to come back down to the bottom of your snowshoe And the same as when you went across, the rule is you go over and under. So you're going to go over the strands here. You're going to have more eventually. So always go over these. And when you come down to the bottom, you go underneath the strands that you have here. So over and under when you go across, and over and under when you go down. So you come underneath, and you're going to tie another half hitch at the bottom. Okay, so this is our snowshoe so far. Now you would think that you're going to come up and do a twirl over here, but you're not. You're going to come up and you're going to loop over this knot. Just loop over it. And you're going to tie another reef knot to the side of the snowshoe here. So now we go across again. So we go over these and under these. And we tie another reef knot over here. Okay. So now we're going to go and hook over this knot above us, like we did on the opposite side. I'm going to come down to the bottom again and tie a half hitch. So this is where we come up from the bottom now, and we're going to tie our first long twirly thing up on the right hand side. So same rule applies. You're going up, you go over the strands on the bottom, under the strands on the top, but you always go over these main group of strands here when you go up to tie your knot. Okay, so over these, under these two, or however many you're going to have there, and always over the main strands, and tie a half hitch here to make one like this. So I'm going to do 2 twirls around this one. One, and a second one. So I've got 1, 2. And I'm going to come underneath and on the left hand side of the line that went up. Now when you go down, you're going to weave through what you have here, because you want to go over the horizontal ones and you want to go underneath these diagonal ones. So you have to do them one at a time by weaving them. So over the first horizontal one, underneath the diagonal one, over the second horizontal one, and underneath the last diagonal one, and tie another reef knot on the side. So again, we're going across, we're going over and under. So over these strands, under these strands, tie another reef knot on the left hand side. Okay, so here we're basically starting all over again. We're going to weave as we go up, over and under, and do our second twirly thing on the top. So we go across or over the diagonal ones, and under the horizontal one. So over and under. Over this diagonal one, underneath this horizontal one, over and under, and again always over your main strands. And tie your second long one on the left hand side. As you can see, this is all still pretty slack. You don't want to be pulling it too tight at this point because it's going to pull your snowshoe out of shape. But once you start to weave it in the middle, you're going to see it's going to come really, really tight. This one is a little longer, so I'm going to do 3 twirls on this one, where I only did 2 on the first one. So I've got my 3 done. I'm going to come in underneath and to the left. Okay, we're going to go down to the bottom again. So over these 3, underneath these 3, tie your half hitch, and we're back to just repeating the same thing over and over. So remember, you're not going to come up here and do your second long twirly thing on this side. You're going to loop this knot, tie here, come across, come down, then go up and do your second twirl. And you're going to repeat that for until you have 4 twirls here, and then I'll show you what you do after that. Okay, so we've got our 4th long twirl done here at the top on the left hand side. So now when we go down, things change a little bit. So we've been weaving as we go up on the sides, but we still go over and under as we go to the bottom. So we're going to go over all the horizontal strands and underneath diagonal strands again. Tie our half hitch at the bottom. So normally here we were going up and making a loop over this knot, but now we don't do that anymore. This time we're going to weave across the bottom. And then we're going to go up and do our 4th long twirl on the right hand side. So weaving across the bottom is pretty straightforward. You've got a V coming off of each knot. So you're just going to go over and under, over and under, over and under each V that's there. So I've come to the end of my line because I didn't use the full 18 fetims, I used 11. And I've got my other 7 here, so now I have to join it. So what you want to do is burn the ends. You want to make them nice and flat. And you can take a nail and make a little hole. I usually do it about 1.5 inches, 2 inches back. So you're going to put your piece of line inside this piece of line. So just making a little hole for the line to go into because the line is hollow. So you take your piece of line that you're going to join and you put it inside that. Can be a bit tricky if this is not flat, which it's not. I'm going to burn that again. So all I'm doing is pushing this long line up inside of the other piece of line. So again, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Then you have to do the same thing on the other side. So you make a hole for starting with your nail. Okay, so you've got a piece of line going in this way and a piece of line going in this way. And you can pull on that and it'll stay together so that's your join. Okay, so I weaved across the bottom, tied my half hitch. Same rule still applies for going up over all of these and under all of these. I've now got 4 long stems on this side and 4 on this side. So now I'm going to come down and weave as I go down. Tie here, and then I'm going to come across the bottom, still going over and under. Okay, now we're ready to tie our 5th twirl, and this is going to be our last one at the top. Okay, so on our last long twirl, we're going to, instead of just doing a few twirls like we did here, we're going to twirl it tight right from the top to the bottom like this. So you want to keep stretching it as you go. So just do a few, push them up tight, do a few more, and then stretch it and push them back up to the top like that until you've gone right to the bottom. Okay, so we're going back down over all the horizontal ones, under the diagonal ones. Tie half hitch. Weave across the bottom again. So over, under, over, under. Okay, so back over the diagonal ones, under the horizontal ones, over your main strands. And we're going to tie our fifth and last long twirly thing on the right hand side. Then we'll have 5 on each side, and then we're just going to be going back and forth weaving in the middle. Okay, until now we've been going across, just going over and under all these strands. But now that we've got all of our long stems with the twirls on them finished on top, this is when, not until you do the very last one, you come down, this is when you start weaving in the middle. So to start weaving in the middle, you're going to go over all of your diagonal ones except for the very last one. So you go over all of them, and now you see you're meeting up with a diagonal one coming from the other side, so you want to go under that diagonal one, over your last diagonal one from this side, and then under the rest. So I'll show that to you once more. Some people call this picking up the X, because you have an X in the middle here. So you go over all your diagonal strands except for the last one. This is where you meet the one coming down from the other side, so you can go under that one. Over this one, and under the rest. So you've just begun to weave. So again, we're going to weave up through all of these, over and under, over and under, and over and under. You still go over this main strand now when you get up here, but now we're not going up to the top of our snowshoe anymore. We're just going to wrap around these strands, come back down, across, and keep continuing that. So we'll weave up here, grab this, weave down here, come across, and do that over and over. Okay, so you wrap around all your strands. Again, come out through the bottom on the left hand side. And you're going to weave back down. So right here you've got nothing to weave, you're just going over all of these until you meet the one coming up on the diagonal from the opposite side. So over, over, over until you meet this one, which you want to go underneath, right? Over, under, and then under the rest. So what you want to be careful of when you're getting to the end here, when you're getting close to the end, is that you make sure you come down the right way. So I came up along this side, along this one, which means I'm over next to this one. Don't come down by this one, because you still got one more that's going to come here and come down here. So just be careful of that. I've done that several times. So you're still following this one, tie next to this one and come down on this side. Okay, so when we come across for the last time and do our last half hitch over here, you can just tie off your end and burn it. And then you've got your finished snowshoe.